never be able to forget her torrid and terrifying affair with cold-blooded killer Chris Watts.
He seemed like a genuine guy, you know, I mean, he was funny, he was charming.
That night, Amanda says they had their first sexual encounter.
He was very rough, I would say. Very rough. And, you know, the best way I can describe it is as he's almost zoned out into a different person. He'd place his hand around my neck. And I quickly it freaked me out.
The next time Amanda saw Watts, he was in the headlines for killing his wife and kids. She still can't believe she dated him.
It made me feel betrayed. It made me feel nasty. It made me feel dirty. I know how that hurts. I wouldn't do that to her.
March 2018. 6 months before Shannon Watts and her 2 daughters vanished from their home in Colorado, a stranger, states away, swiped right. Her name was Amanda McMahon. She thought it was just another Tinder match. A casual night. No expectations. No attachments. He said his name was Chris. He told her he was divorced. He made her laugh. He seemed safe. Harmless. Charming, even. They met in the parking lot of a Chick-fil-A. She picked him up. He got in the car like he'd done it 100 times before. Calm. Smooth. Too smooth. Amanda drove him to her place. They watched Shutter Island, a film about secrets, delusions, and dangerous minds. When the movie ended, the mask slipped. He leaned in. He kissed her, and then he grabbed her throat. No warning. No consent. Just pressure. Hard. Tight. Relentless. She froze, then pushed him off. He laughed, brushed it off, like it was normal, like it was fun. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't normal. It wasn't okay. Amanda never called him again. She tried to forget it, tried to move on, until 5 months later, she saw his face on the evening news. Chris Watts, husband, father, murderer. The same hands that were around her throat were now accused of ending 3 lives. She came forward. She told her story. She said he was violent, controlling, that he liked the fear, that he fed on it. Some didn't believe her. Some said she was chasing fame. But Amanda didn't want attention. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand how close she had come to dying. Because in her mind, that night wasn't just sex. It was rehearsal, and she was the test run. This is the story most people never heard. The woman who saw the monster before he took off the mask. The one who got away. The one who lived. Amanda McMahon met a man named Chris Watts on Tinder. But what she really met was a shadow. And shadows don't stay hidden forever. While Amanda McMahon was driving home with a stranger she barely knew, over 800 miles away, Shannon Watts was filming another Facebook video in her kitchen. She smiled into the camera. Her voice was upbeat, full of love. Her girls played in the background, giggling, and her unborn son kicked softly inside her. She believed her life was moving forward. But the man she loved was quietly slipping away. Chris Watts wasn't sleeping in the same bed anymore. He'd started working out obsessively. He changed his diet. He wore cologne to work. He stared at his phone more than her face. Shannon noticed. She texted her friends. She cried into her pillow. But she never stopped fighting for her marriage. He told her he was just tired, just distant, just overwhelmed. He never told her about Tinder, or the woman from the parking lot, or the one-night stand that ended with his hands around another woman's neck. He never told her about Nicole Kessinger either. The coworker, the affair, the secret gym trips, the lies. While Shannon planned gender reveals and family vacations, Chris was deleting texts, clearing browser histories, and Googling how to prepare for a new life without his wife. In late June, he flew out to visit Shannon and the girls in North Carolina. They stayed with her parents. He stayed cold. She tried to fix things. He stayed silent. By early August, Shannon wrote a letter to him in her notebook. She poured out her fears. She asked him to come back to her. She told him she loved him more than ever. He read it and said nothing. Meanwhile, Amanda McMahon was still trying to forget that night in her apartment. Still trying to make sense of why a man would smile at you, then strangle you with the same hands. She had no idea that the same man she had pushed off her body was now pushing the boundaries of his own darkness in Colorado. Chris Watts wasn't just planning an escape. He was preparing for erasure. Erase the marriage. Erase the obligations. Erase the witnesses. And no one saw it coming. Not Amanda. Not Shannon. Not even the police. Not yet. But something was brewing behind his empty eyes. A storm. A fracture. A quiet man with a deadly plan. August 13th, 2018. A quiet morning in Frederick, Colorado. The sun hadn't fully risen. The house at 2825 Saratoga Trail looked peaceful. The beds were made. The baby's room was ready. The family dog wandered through the halls. But Shannon Watts was gone. So were her daughters, Bella and Celeste. Her phone was still there. Her purse. Her car in the garage, car seats untouched. Nothing taken. No note. No struggle. Just absence. Cold and terrifying. At 1:48 a.m., Shannon had returned home from a business trip. A friend dropped her off. She walked through the front door and vanished. By noon, the police were at the house. Chris Watts answered the door. He was calm. Almost too calm. He said he didn't know where they were. That he'd left for work early that morning and hadn't seen them since. Body cam footage shows him pacing, talking, joking, barely making eye contact. A neighbor showed the police his surveillance footage. Chris stood behind them, arms folded, breathing heavily. The neighbor turned and whispered to the officer, "He's not acting right. Something's off." Across the country, Amanda McMahon was going about her day, until she saw his face. On every channel, every headline. The man from Tinder. The man who choked her in the dark. Chris Watts was now a suspect in the disappearance of his pregnant wife and 2 little girls. She sat frozen, her mouth dry, her heart pounding. She didn't need to wait for the verdict. She already knew. The country watched as Chris appeared on national television, begging for his family's return, saying he missed them, that he just wanted them home. But the mask was slipping, and underneath was something hollow. The FBI stepped in. Chris failed the polygraph. Miserably. Then came the confession. He said Shannon had killed the girls, and that he killed her in rage. A lie. A cover story. Desperate and twisted. Days later, the truth came out. He had murdered Shannon in their bed. He had driven her body and his daughters, still alive, to an oil site. There, in the early hours of morning, he ended their lives, one by one. Then he dumped his daughters' bodies in separate oil tanks. Small openings, cold metal, darkness. He buried Shannon in a shallow grave nearby. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated, calculated, mechanical. Chris Watts didn't just kill his family. He erased them. Across the country, Amanda stared at the television. Her mind raced. The hands that had gripped her neck had done this. And suddenly, her silence became unbearable, because she hadn't just slept with a monster. She had survived one. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. Her body was trembling in ways it hadn't since that night. Amanda McMahon watched the news like she was watching her own funeral. Every new detail about Chris Watts felt like a delayed punch to the gut. The murders, the oil tanks, the shallow grave, the lies. And all she could think was, I was alone in a room with that man. She remembered his smile, his charm, the way he kissed her neck before he squeezed it. She hadn't gone to the police then. She brushed it off, tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just rough. Maybe it was just a bad night. But now she knew. It wasn't just a bad night. It was practice. She reached out to a local news station. She told her story, nervous, shaking, exposing the part of her life she tried to erase. She said she met Chris on Tinder, that he told her he was divorced, that they watched a movie, that he attacked her in her own home. She said it wasn't sex. It was a performance, like he was playing out a fantasy, like he wanted to see how far he could go. She said he choked her until her eyes filled with tears, until her hands pushed him off, and he smiled. She said he left without apology, and she never forgot the silence that followed. Her story hit the airwaves. The internet erupted. Some believed her instantly. Others didn't. She was accused of chasing clout, fabricating, inserting herself into a national tragedy. But Amanda didn't care about attention. She came forward because she couldn't bear the guilt of staying quiet, because she needed people to know what he was capable of, because she needed to feel like she hadn't missed the signs for nothing. Chris Watts denied knowing her, claimed he only had one affair with Nicole Kessinger, but investigators couldn't ignore Amanda's details. Her timeline, her fear. Her name appeared in the official discovery files. And suddenly, Amanda McMahon wasn't just a side story. She was the only woman who had seen the monster and lived to talk about it. The night she was choked, he was married. His wife was alive. His daughters were sleeping in their beds. But the darkness was already there. And Amanda, she was his rehearsal. She didn't know it then, but she was lucky to walk away. He wasn't the type anyone suspected. No criminal record. No history of violence. No outbursts. No arrests. Just a quiet man from North Carolina. A father. A husband. A guy who smiled for photos and mowed his lawn on Saturdays. But behind the silence, something was boiling. Chris Watts wasn't a monster on the outside. He was mild, passive, almost invisible. That's what made him so dangerous. Because his rage didn't explode. It simmered. The FBI called him a family annihilator. A rare type of killer. Usually male. Often under financial pressure. Feeling trapped. Powerless. They don't lash out in the heat of the moment. They plan. And when they finally act, they kill everyone who knows them as they are. The family becomes the prison. And murder becomes the escape. Chris had debt. He had secrets. He had a mistress. And he had a fantasy. In the weeks leading up to the murders, he started working out obsessively. Losing weight. Buying new clothes. Changing his appearance. Reinventing himself. Not for Sean Ann. For someone else. For a new life. One without diapers, bills, and responsibilities. One without witnesses. Psychologists say he suffered from narcissistic collapse, the moment when someone who built their identity on an image sees it crumble. Instead of rebuilding, they destroy everything tied to it. Amanda McMahon described Chris during sex as someone obsessed with control. He didn't ask. He didn't explain. He just took. He wanted to dominate, to own the moment, to erase consent. That moment wasn't about intimacy. It was about power. And when Amanda pushed him off, he didn't fight. Because deep down, he wasn't ready yet. But the desire was there. The hands, the stare, the silence afterward. All signs of a man rehearsing something darker. Chris Watts didn't kill because of one bad night. He killed because control was slipping. His lies were stacking. His double life was imploding. He wasn't willing to let his family go. Not to the courts, not to the public, not to anyone. So he made a decision. If he couldn't erase his mistakes, he would erase the people who knew them. The psychology of Chris Watts isn't about madness. It's about a man who wanted to disappear and decided that murder was the only way to do it. Two women, same man, same year, different truths. Amanda McMahon met Chris Watts in March 2018. He said he was divorced. She believed him. One night. One memory she still can't shake. Nicole Kessinger met Chris Watts in late May. He said he was in the middle of a separation. She believed him too. But while Amanda's encounter lasted a few hours, Nicole stayed longer. She worked with him, talked with him daily, slept with him, fell for him. By June, they were sharing meals, hiding text threads, planning getaways. Amanda said Chris made her feel afraid. Nicole said Chris made her feel alive. Amanda came forward after the murders, with fear in her voice and no script to follow. Nicole went dark. She deleted messages, erased Google searches, and told police she had no idea Sean Ann was pregnant. But the internet found more. Search histories, deleted photos, Google queries like how to delete phone data, can police trace text messages, and wedding dresses. People began to ask, what did Nicole know? And when did she know it? Amanda never claimed to love Chris, never imagined a future with him. She wanted distance. Nicole imagined a new life, one with him, without Sean Ann, without the girls. Amanda described violence, choking, cold eyes and silence. Nicole described laughter, tenderness, and then distance. She said he changed in early August, that he became distant and moody, that he wasn't himself. But that was the same time Shannon began to fear for her marriage. When she texted a friend, saying, "He has no emotion, no remorse. It's like I don't exist." Amanda saw that side of him in one night. Nicole saw it unfold in slow motion. Amanda said she felt lucky to be alive. Nicole said she felt betrayed. The contrast is chilling. Two women, unknowingly orbiting a man capable of unthinkable cruelty. One became a witness. The other became a mystery. Amanda's story was raw, messy, unfiltered. Nicole's story was controlled, calculated, carefully given to investigators, piece by piece. And when the world looked for someone to blame beyond Chris, they found Nicole. The internet turned her into a villain, a seductress, a conspirator. But there was no proof she knew about the murders in advance. Just questions. Amanda and Nicole will likely never meet, but their stories are threads in the same unraveling. Two mirrors reflecting different sides of the same monster. One saw the danger, the other fell in love with it. And both were left to live with the consequences. He said it was a crime of passion, that he snapped, that he caught Shannon killing the girls and reacted. But that wasn't the truth. And deep down, Chris Watts knew it. The real confession came later, in a cold prison interview, months after the trial. No cameras, no courtroom, just investigators and a man with nothing left to hide. He admitted everything. He strangled Shannon in their bed while she fought for her life. He wrapped her body in a sheet. He carried it to his truck. And then he woke his daughters. He said Bella asked what was wrong with Mommy. He lied to her face. Then he drove them all, the dead and the living, to an oil site. And one by one, he ended them. No rage, no snap, just silence, precision, and cruelty. He killed Celeste first, then Bella. His last living child begged him not to, but he did it anyway. Amanda read the transcript, every line, every detail, and then she remembered. The hands, the weight on her chest, the moment she thought she might not survive. And she realized Shannon had lived that moment too. Only Amanda made it out alive. Investigators went back through Chris's phone. They mapped the timelines. Amanda's story fit. The Tinder hookup, the rough sex, the violent behavior. And suddenly, her testimony wasn't just a footnote. It was a warning sign missed. One that could have unraveled him months earlier, if only someone had listened. Chris was preparing long before the murders. He was testing control, testing fear, testing what he could get away with. Amanda was never in the plan, but she became a glimpse into the mind that would later plan the perfect erasure. He killed his wife. He killed his daughters. He killed the truth, and buried all three in oil and lies. But truth has a way of seeping back through the cracks. Amanda McMahon didn't save Shannon, but she helped the world see what Chris Watts really was. Not just a killer, a planner, a deceiver, a man rehearsing death long before he committed it. The world moved on. Headlines faded. Reporters packed up. The courtroom emptied. But for the ones left behind, the silence only got louder. Shannon's family wakes each day knowing their daughter and her two girls are gone forever. Bella, Celeste, Nico, a baby never born. 3 children buried in the shadow of a man who once swore to protect them. And Amanda McMahon, she walks through a different kind of silence. She wasn't a wife. She wasn't a mother. She wasn't in love. But she was a warning the world didn't hear in time. She met a version of Chris Watts that no one else had seen. The version who liked to dominate, who didn't ask permission, who got off on fear. The version who was rehearsing. Amanda came forward not to be famous, but to be free, to release what she had carried, to say, I saw it, I felt it, I survived it. And maybe, if someone had listened earlier, 3 lives might still be here. Chris Watts sits in a cell. Life without parole, no sunlight, no future. But for the rest of us, for the ones who study this case, who grieve strangers we never met, who ask how someone could do such a thing. There's one answer we can't ignore. The signs were there. In the silence. In the stare. In the Tinder hookup no one believed. Amanda McMahon is not the face of this tragedy, but she is its haunting echo. A woman who walked away from a monster, breathless and shaken. A survivor who saw the storm coming and lived to tell the world it was real. Because survivors never sleep. They remember, and they carry the truth, even when no one else wants to.